Okay, so you're very welcome to the Howth Spirituality channel. Today we have Rob Carley. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rob. And thanks very much for agreeing to do this today. And I'll start off, Rob, by just asking you to sort of describe to us what sort of a believer you are.
What sort of believer am I? I suppose for my particular brand of faith, there's lots of titles and tags, and I'll give you a few of them, and then I'll explain to you what that means. So people would refer to me as an evangelical. They'd refer to me as a Pentecostal. They'd refer to me as a born again. Some people would refer to me as an overactive Christian. Some people would call me, he's one of those mad Christians. Some people would say he's an obsessive Christian. And some people would say that he's a Christian whose life is completely governed by his beliefs, and that's often referred to as a Bible basher, which is or a fundamentalist. So they would be the titles kind of associated when people would hear the title. For me, the reality is that I'm a bloke who has discovered that I can have a friendship with God through this faith that Jesus died for me on the cross, and it's a relationship as opposed to a religion. So if I was to describe what my faith is, I'd say, do you know what, my faith is actually the engine that drives who I am and why I am. And it's a really safe way, it's a strong way, it's a secure way. Often it's a challenging way. But what I found in my life, that it's been a very rewarding way for many reasons. Most of all because it fulfills me, I feel, towards the destiny that I was made for or created for. So there's a very long what my faith is.
Wow, fascinating answer, Bob. You mentioned quite casually that you're a pastor, which isn't something you mentioned initially.
Right.
You seem to wear that lightly, Rob. Can you tell us a bit about what that means to you to be a pastor?
Yeah. I suppose I wear it lightly because I'm reluctantly a pastor. When I was growing up, I suppose. See, I absolutely 100% believe that every one of us is called to purpose. That we're created on purpose, with purpose, for purpose. And once you discover your purpose and you have a passion for that purpose, that's when you can change the game. So I would have, and I can share in a while maybe, throughout my life, I would have, I suppose the best way to describe it would be to blow hot and cold. Sometimes different things seem more attractive than my walk with God. Sometimes, I just got busy with career and with family. Sometimes I got busy with selfishness, just like, I've had enough of all this. I just want to do my own thing. I want to live the wild life, go mad, straight off onto the dark side, and did whatever I felt like doing. And then suddenly when I was there, I kind of go, actually, no, I really miss that friendship with God and making the journey back. And so, if you can imagine, I always describe myself as God's wild child. He was like, if that fella ever settles down, I have a purpose and a plan for his life. So in the last, probably over the last 6 or 7 years, I've been really praying about, Lord, what is that purpose? What is that purpose in my life? What is the call that you have for me specifically, apart from my own, grow as a Christian with you, grow deeper in my relationship with you, share with those I know, in love, and just do acts of love, which are a really important part of Christianity. And it's not all about Bible bashing. Sometimes it's just about putting your arm around someone who's struggling and saying, "Are you okay?" It's as easy as "Can I carry your bag for you? Can I?" It's that. So I always think Christianity there's where the rubber meets the road, is how we interact with the people that we know and love, and the people that we don't know and should love. So about 5 years ago, I suddenly really felt like God was calling me, saying, I need you to bring this love and bring this way of thinking to this side of the city, the north side of the city. So I was like, not me, Lord. There must be someone else. There must be someone better qualified. There must be someone, I suppose, more solid than me. There must be someone who doesn't have such an insane sense of humour, who sees funny things in everything he sees. Maybe that's not the persona for a pastor. And then I really felt God loved me and said, well, there's no one who loves as much as you do. There's no one who cares as much as you do. There's no one who is genuinely affected by people's lives and by their lack of, their lack of understanding that they might receive at certain times in their lives, and just that compassion. I've been blessed with a massive heart of compassion, which is just it's a gift which is hard to carry sometimes, because sometimes it hurts, because you hurt when people hurt. And I think really that really is the central thing for a pastor. It's not really being the cleverest or the quickest or the brightest. It's actually about the one who can love. And even when people do things that isn't loving you back and misunderstanding you and saying things to you that's like, that would be hurtful, you still got to press on and go, yeah, well, I'm still called to pastor. So when I would hear pastor, it's the scripture describes pastor as almost like a shepherd. And in the Bible, the shepherd was the one who found the best food for the sheep, the nicest water for the sheep, led them into the spaces that were safest for the sheep, took a hit for the sheep, took on the bear for the sheep, fought the lion for the sheep, and brought the sheep to where there was green pastures. And for me, that's what pastoring is. Pastoring is that every week I search the scriptures to see what would God bring to us this week to show us how we can grow more to be like him. Will it encourage people? Will it challenge people? Will it bring people to a better space in their lives? So that's the Sunday gig. And then the rest of the week is making sure everybody's okay and that we're walking the journey together. So myself and my wife planted a church called the Life Centre. We meet in... at the minute, we're meeting in the Marine Hotel on Sundays at 7:30, and we're building community. We're building community. Would have kind of now we don't want to build it just for the church sake. The vision that God gave me is that it should be an outreach. So we plan to have a building that would have counselling services, a food bank, a clothes bank, a drop-in centre, a kids club, a senior citizens drop-in centre. So I really believe church should be active. It's not like we used to describe it as the holy huddle. Oh, aren't we great? We found God. It's like, we're here, we're representing God. And someone once said, what did God do about all the poor and the homeless in the country? And someone said, he made you. So the idea is that we're made to do something about that stuff. So we're his emissaries on life, as emissaries, is that what it's called? We're his ambassadors. It's actually the scripture calls us ambassadors. So we carry that thing, and that's what pastoring is for me. It's like, almost leading people and motivating people and encouraging people to kind of see, yeah, I'm part of that. So it's not authority, it's more like responsibility, I suppose.
Is it possible just to say a bit about growing up, Rob? And you mentioned you were sort of marinated in evangelical Christianity. And my guess is that was probably quite unusual at the time. What was that like? And
yeah,
can you say a bit about that?
Unusual is probably making it too general. It was actually unique. It was weird. It was like I don't know if I knew another kid who had the same stuff going on. Like, because most Christians were old people. So my mum and dad were like in their 30s, mid 30s, and I was going to school saying, "Does anyone else?" And I was like, "Yeah, we kind of believe that, but not to that extreme, So, so growing up for me, my dad was an army soldier. So there's two sides. So he was a soldier. He was different for his generation. He was a very open man, very loving man, very caring man. So my early home experiences, I only had a loving father, right, and a delicious mother. It's probably the best way I could describe it, right? So in that environment, you would look and go, what are making my mum and dad different to everyone else? What's the thing that we talk about that seems to make them who they are, right? And looking back now, it was their faith, right? No, they didn't sail through life. So my mum had some pretty serious, like my mum lost a baby at full term on the day it was born. She got so anemic at another stage, so she lost all her hair for 2 years. They hadn't got very much money. They were quite poor. So it wasn't easy, but they still had this sense of peace. You know that kind of. So we were always fed, we were always dry, we were always well dressed, we were always, loved. We were always put to bed with a kiss. So you're kind of saying, how could they do all that and still have all that other stuff going on in the background, all that madness of life going on? And then you go, because they had God in their life. They were just like, they just focused on him and his love and his patience and his kindness and it was. So I think that attracted me to it. And then we would have gone to church with them, and the
What sort of a church? Where was it? Where in Dublin, or was it?
Yeah, it was the church I remember going to is we went, first of all, we went to this church down on the North Wall, and it was in a boxing hall, right? I think it might have been Northumberland Hall. That might be the wrong name, but it was a boxing hall on other nights, right? So we'd all turn up, and in those days there was no microphones. The pastor up the front spoke loudly, and then the worship team, the band at the time, was an accordion and a violin, and someone had a bugle, and everyone sang these amazing old choruses, which somehow made their way into your heart and into your spirit and into your soul, deep into you. And probably the song that most people will be familiar with is that old hymn, "How Great Thou Art," which has kind of become a classic. But for us, that was a church hymn, and it was like, "How great Thou art." When I see that God, His own Son, not sparing, sent Him to die, I scarce can take it in. Now that sounds like real old English, but the poetry in that was just fantastic. It's like, when God, His own Son, not sparing, sent Him to die, I scarce can take it in. And I would hear people singing this, and I'd see people like weeping as they sang it, with the realization that the God that created the world, that made the thunder, that made all these sounds, sent Jesus to die because He loved you enough and wants to be in communion with you. And there was a bit of that, and the joy on their faces, and the community spirit that they had. And now, I wouldn't say when I was 6, I was going, I must do this when I grow up. I just know now, looking back, that something in that, remember, that's the marinating thing I was talking about, because you soak it in, and you don't realise, why am I attracted? What am I looking for? So when the older you get, you kind of go, I'm actually looking for that sense of peace and joy and safety that my parents gave me. So, and then go, where did they get that? They got that in their faith in God. So that's probably why when I say I was marinating it, that's what attracted me to that lifestyle, was just that, this works. That's all I said.
It worked for your parents.
It worked for them.
And you could see that growing up.
Saw that. So then, as you get older, you see, it's easy when you're 8. What choices have you got in life? It's either God or my action man. It's like, so your life choices aren't stark. But when you get up into your teenage years, and it's like, okay, so everyone I know is drinking. Am I going to drink? Is everyone else is going out with girls and doing what you want to do with girls? And am I going to do that? And everyone else is lying and cheating and robbing. Am I going to? No, not, that's a generalization, but like in your generation, your mates are out living the wild thing, and you're like, no, I'm not coming because I'm going to church, right? So, and for most of my teenage life, that was okay. And indeed, I did fall in love with a girl, and we went on to get married, and she came to faith, and she believed the same as me, and we walked together for 36 years. We were together, and then sadly she passed away. She had an aneurysm and died, and even in that, I had to see, is the faith thing, is that real? Is that solid? But in those early teenage years, I did okay for most of the time, and then every now and again I went, do you know what? I'm going to give the other side a go and see what it's like. So you then went off to do what you wanted, to do your own thing, and and for a while you tried to do the two things, but it was almost like when you were doing, it was either one or the other. And in many ways, when you read the scripture, like what we're called most is to make a choice. That is like, there's a great verse in the Old Testament. I think it's Joshua says it. It says like, choose this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. So it's almost like right through the scriptures, there's this choice is put, like, who's going to get your heart? Who's going to get your devotion? Who's going to get your energy? So for a time of life, I tried to do the two of them. But Jesus actually says you can't serve two masters. You can't be one thing and the other. You can't be like this now and that then. Try and choose. So for a time I chose the other way. I kind of went, you know what? Because here's the thing. When you're doing the other stuff, it's very instant gratification. Does that make sense? The response is instant. You feel good now. You feel great now. It's like, I have it now. It's going to be now. And a lot of the spiritual stuff is like you're banking for the future. You're like, yeah, it's good now, but it's going to be great then, right? So it's almost like these two, do you want to spend the cash now, or do you want to come back on next week's show? It's a bit like, so as a teenager, instant feels great. So I went and did my own thing. And to be honest with you, when I was about 21, I think I got myself quite near a nervous breakdown. I just couldn't call. I started getting panic attacks and anxiety attacks. Didn't know what was wrong with me. It was like, everything was frightening me. I was like, couldn't sleep. I was drinking a lot. And like, I remember coming home one night and coming into Mum and Dad, bursting into tears and going, I don't know what's wrong with me, right? And they'd watched my decline into this, like I looked disheveled. I looked, I was still holding on a job. Like I was working in the bank at the time, so I was still holding on this job. And I remember my dad just saying to me, Rob, you just need the peace of God back in your life, right? And I went, that sounds good. And it was like that, just that instant thought, like, peace of God just sounds good.
Yeah, maybe finally, Rob, if you could say a bit about what you think happens to you when you die.
Okay, well, this is very important to me, I suppose, because when I talk about life, I talk about eternity. So it's the problem that most of us make about life is like it starts when we're born and finishes when we're dead. The scary thing is that's the short piece. That's that piece. The rest is the long journey. And I suppose this never became any more real to me than when my first wife Jean passed away. She had an aneurysm, and I was really struggling with the loss, and I was in a dark space. And I was in bed one night and I was praying. I was fighting with God, saying, "What are you thinking? And why did you do this?"
What age were you, Rob?
It's only 4 years ago. It's 4 years ago. So I was 49. So, and all, we got to the stage where all the kids we'd raised the kids to just past teenage years. And we'd done the hard graft, and we were now into what I would call the reward time. So it's like the weddings coming up, these grandchildren would come and all. So that's where your head was. And then suddenly this girl goes to work, doesn't come home, has an aneurysm. My fight with God is why? I had a list of other people he could have taken. It's like, what about all those? But I'm not God. I'm not God. And so I'm lying in bed praying and going, you don't understand this, and why was that? And then clear as clear, I got a picture in my head of a wall, a huge big blank wall, and a tiny little dot on the wall, and then another tiny little dot on the wall. And it was like the voice of God said to me, Rob, the first dot is the time you knew each other. The second dot is the time that you'll be separated. And the wall is eternity. So I'm like, wow, the vastness of the wall and the size of eternity. I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of time. So for that, and for all of us, you're kind of going, okay, so when I say to people, like, when God comes into your life, it's you're going to spend eternity in relationship with him or not in relationship with him. So it's not as if, like, if you don't believe in God, you won't have an eternity. It's if you believe in God or not believe in God, there is an eternity. The decision we make now is where we spend the rest of that time. And the reading of the scriptures is the decisions we make now decide. So it's like saying, if we make our peace with God now, in eternity, we'll be in fellowship with him. If we don't, we won't be in fellowship with him. So for me, when Jesus said, I came to give you life and life abundant, it starts now, but it never ends. So even death, when we talk about death in our Christian faith, it's more transition. It's like you go from a struggle where you try to live your life in communion with God to a place where there's no struggle and you're in total communion with God. And Jesus describes it, when you get to heaven, there'll be no more wars, no more fighting, no more tears, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more sickness. And you're kind of going, man, why would that be? Because God is there. And he is all those things. Remember, we talk about the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, long-suffering, patience, meekness, gentleness. They're living in a space. Remember I said, imagine if we could have a community where that was it. Well, heaven, I believe that's it, because that's all that's there. And for me, my absolute belief and assurance is that because I've accepted that at a stage in my life I was separated from God by my sin, but God sent Jesus to die on my behalf, and those sins are washed away. So I no more carry guilt for anything I've done or will do. It's forgiven. It's washed away. Because of that, I'm now in communion with God. And when I die, I will go straight into his arms. And there's no doubt in my mind that will happen. And that was the assurance that I had for Jean when I lost her. It's the assurance for all the people that we love. And that, I suppose, that there's a great verse in the Bible that says that we can give an account for the hope that is within us. Like, Christianity is all about hope.
So, Rob, well, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Is there anything you'd like to say to kind of finish up tonight?
I just want to say thanks a million for having me. It's always lovely to share your faith and what you believe. I think the concept of the Howth Spirituality channel is amazing, because beyond everything else, and I know one thing that we all have in common as humans, I know for a fact that within our hearts there's a hole that needs to be filled, and that's called spirituality. We all, even in mental health training now, they all say, listen, your spirituality is really important. And we spend a lot of time trying to find things that fit that hole to make us feel complete. My absolute and passionate belief is the only thing that will ever fill that is a relationship with God through Jesus. And that's why I'm happy to come and share my faith on this channel, because I know that I've filled my longing for something to really fill my spirituality, and it's made a difference in my life. It's changed my world. Hasn't made life easy all the time, but it's made it certainly an exciting journey. So thanks for having me.